Hi, I'm Trevor Austin, founder of Authentic Life Financial Planning. In this video, we're discussing key mistakes to avoid during a liquidity event. One of the last things that I want to cover are key mistakes when going through a liquidity event. Some of these I've already touched on, but I really do think that they deserve their own moment to be very clear on what you need to be aware of. I know I've beaten this like a dead horse, and I get that, I understand, but it really is because it's so important that you are planning for taxes. Not planning for taxes is by far the number one mistake that I see when people go through a liquidity event. You need to have a plan for it, and again, you cannot expect your company stock to pay for the taxes on its own. You need to have a plan, and you need to actually work with a tax professional or financial advisor to make sure that you are properly preparing for the taxes that will be due. I know I've said it so much, but it really is like by far the number one mistake that I see people make. Number two, expecting the stock and company to continue to grow, especially at the same pace that it was previously. Again, none of us knows what's going to happen with company stock. None of us knows what the future holds. We just don't. We have no idea what will happen in the future. We have no idea. And so expecting that the company stock will continue to go up and that the company will continue to grow at the pace that it did before the liquidity event is just a huge mistake. You have to assume that it's going to change because it should. The company has fundamentally changed from either a private company to a public company, or one private, two separate private companies to one private company, or whatever the combination is. Like, the company has fundamentally changed, and so we cannot assume that it will continue to grow at the pace that it has. When that comes to your stock, it means we have to be really thoughtful on how we hold your shares going forward. We can't just keep doing what we've been doing. We can't just hold and expect that things will be all sunshine and roses, because they're likely not. Maybe it will, and if that's what happens, that's great. That's a great problem to have, and we should be so thankful that we get to pay a whole bunch of tax when that happens. But if it doesn't happen, again, we have to plan that essentially is what will happen. It means that we will be much more happy when it performs better than we're expecting, because we're expecting pretty much the worst. Number three is not cashing out for life goals, whether they're near-term goals or long-term goals. Again, I have nothing against holding company stock. You may hear that the rule of thumb is you shouldn't hold more than 5 or 10 or 20% of your overall investment assets in your company stock. I think that's bullshit, personally. I think that completely ignores your individual situation. It ignores what you want to accomplish in life. It ignores what your long-term projections look like when we ignore the company stock. So I think that's dumb. I've worked with clients who have 50, 60, 80, 90% of their portfolio in one individual stock. And for some of them, that was totally okay. They did not need to diversify to make sure their long-term was going to be okay. In other cases, that was not the case. They needed to cut back by a pretty significant amount to make the long-term look okay. So again, you need to have a plan for you. What you decide to do needs to align with what you want to accomplish. And that ultimately is what financial decisions should be. It shouldn't be about making the optimal decision financially. It should be about making the optimal decision for you. The last thing is not planning in advance. In my opinion, if you have private company stock who is trending towards an IPO, you need to be planning for that years in advance. And the reason for that is that there's certain tax strategies that require years in advance before you sell. And if you're not making plans to sell before an IPO happens. It's just so easy to make mistakes and end up paying more tax than you would have otherwise. So these 4 things are the key things that I see people make all the time, key mistakes. Like it's so easy to not make these mistakes, and it just requires some planning and some foresight on your part to understand what will happen if my company goes through a liquidity event. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with any questions or topics that you would like to see covered. Financial planning is all about creating the life you want. Let's build it together.